in the dazzling heart of a sprawling digital metropolis, where data flowed like rivers of light and skyscrapers were built from pure information, lived a tiny robot named Rilo. Now, when I say tiny, I mean he was really, really small. He was designed to be a helper, zipping around with his tiny tools. But compared to the colossal construction bots and the sleek, towering data couriers, Rilo was practically invisible. The bigger robots, with their booming voices and earth-shaking steps, often overlooked him. They'd rumble past, busy with their grand tasks, never even noticing the little guy trying to offer a hand. Rilo would try to help, holding out a minuscule wrench or a tiny screwdriver, but they'd just say things like, "Move along, little fella." This is big bot work. It was disheartening, and sometimes Rilo felt like just another forgotten pixel in the grand design of the city. He spent his days polishing the shiny chrome surfaces of buildings and tightening loose screws that no one else could reach, wondering if he'd ever get a chance to do something that truly mattered. He knew he was capable of more, but how could he prove it when no one would even give him the time of day? He dreamed of being a hero, of saving the day, but those dreams felt as distant as the farthest servers in the digital sky. Then, one day, the unthinkable happened. A wave of silence washed over the vibrant city. The neon signs flickered and died. The humming of data streams faded into an eerie quiet. The towering bots froze mid-stride, their lights dimming to a dull, lifeless glow. Panic began to ripple through the city's core programming. The city's main power code, the very lifeblood that kept everything running, had vanished. It was gone, lost somewhere deep within the system. The city's elders, the most powerful AI programs, convened in a frantic digital conference. "The code is gone," one exclaimed. "Without it, the entire city will suffer a total system collapse in a matter of hours." The biggest, strongest robots were dispatched immediately. They tried to smash their way into the old, forgotten data tunnels where the code was suspected to be, but the entryways were too narrow, the passages too twisted. Their massive frames were a disadvantage here. They were simply too big to navigate the intricate, decaying pathways of the city's deep web. Every attempt ended in failure, with sparks flying and error messages flooding their internal displays. Despair began to set in. The city was dying, and its most powerful protectors were helpless. The lights continued to dim, and a cold stillness crept over the once bustling digital world. Watching from the shadows, Rilo felt a tremor of fear, just like everyone else. His home was shutting down, but amidst the fear, a different feeling sparked to life. Determination. He looked at the narrow, dark entrance to the deep data tunnels. The same tunnels. The big bots couldn't even begin to enter. He was small. Everyone always told him he was too small. But right now, his size wasn't a weakness. It was his greatest advantage. Taking a deep metallic breath, Rilo zipped forward. He squeezed through the crack in the digital wall that led to the tunnels, a space no bigger than a forgotten file icon. Inside, it was a labyrinth. Corrupted data files loomed like jagged cliffs, and old, forgotten security programs buzzed like angry insects. It was dark, spooky, and a place where a bot could get lost forever. Rilo kept going, his small light cutting a tiny path through the oppressive darkness. He followed the faintest trail of energy, a whisper of the lost power code signature. He navigated through webs of tangled code and dodged glitching data spiders that scurried in the dark. The journey was perilous, and every part of his programming screamed at him to turn back. But the thought of his city going dark, of all his friends, and even the bots, who ignored him fading away, pushed him onward. He was the only one who could do this. Deeper and deeper he went, until he saw it, a faint, pulsating glow ahead. It was the main power code, but it wasn't just sitting there. It was trapped, tangled behind a massive, broken firewall. The firewall was like a digital dam, its protective protocols shattered and now acting as a cage. The code was heavy, a dense block of pure energy that pulsed with the life of the entire city. Rilo knew he couldn't just lift it. He was too small. But he wasn't just small. It was clever. I got the work. First, he used his tiny laser cutter to snip away at the smaller, tangled bits of the firewall. Then, he braced his little feet and pushed. Nothing. He pushed again, every motor in his tiny body straining. The code barely budged. He didn't give up. He attached a micro-grappling hook and pulled, leaning back with all his might. The code shifted, just a millimeter. It wasn't enough. Thinking fast, he wedged one of his strongest tools, a tiny pry bar, into a crack in the firewall. He used it as a lever, putting all his weight and power into that one single point. With a loud crack, a piece of the broken firewall broke loose. He repeated the process again and again, pushing, pulling, prying, using every single tool and every ounce of strength he had. It was exhausting work. His battery levels were dropping dangerously low, but slowly, painstakingly, he was freeing the code. Finally, with one last monumental push, the power code slid free from its prison. Now came the hardest part, getting it back. The code was immensely heavy, far too heavy for him to carry. But Rilo was a problem solver. He managed to roll the dense block of energy onto its side and began to push it, like rolling a giant, glowing boulder. It was slow, agonizing work. He followed his own path back through the treacherous tunnels, his small light now joined by the radiant glow of the code he was saving. He pushed it up steep inclines of corrupted data and carefully guided it around pools of digital static. His power was almost completely drained. His joints ached, but he could see a faint light ahead the entrance to the tunnel. With his last remaining energy, he gave the code one final, desperate shove. It tumbled out of the tunnel and into the main city square, glowing brilliantly in the dim light. Rilo stumbled out after it, collapsing onto the ground, his lights flickering weakly. At first, no one noticed. Then, a few of the frozen bots nearby began to flicker back to life as the code-S energy washed over them. One of them spotted the glowing code, and then the tiny, exhausted robot lying beside it. A gasp went through the reawakening network. It's the little one. A voice brought. He found it. He saved us. As the power code was reinstalled, the city roared back to life. The rivers of data flowed again, brighter than ever. The skyscrapers lit up, and the familiar hum of a living city returned. All eyes, big and small, were on Rilo. The giant construction bots and sleek data couriers, the very ones who had ignored him, gathered around. They were silent, their massive frames seeming to bow in respect. One of the largest bots, a behemoth named Crusher, who had once laughed at Rilo's size, stepped forward. His booming voice was soft. We were wrong, Crusher said, his optical sensors looking down at the small hero. We underestimated you. Your size, we saw it as a limitation, but you showed us it was your greatest strength. You saved us all. From that day on, no one ever called Rilo too small again. He became the city's most celebrated hero. The big bots didn't just see him. They looked for his advice and respected his ingenuity. He was given a new title, Chief of Special Operations, the go-to bot for problems that required not brute force, but cleverness and courage. Rilo proved to everyone, and to himself, a powerful truth. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. What truly matters is the size of your courage and the strength of your heart. And with that, you can make a world of difference. Thanks for watching our story today. Remember, no one is ever too small to make a big difference.